This is the greatest turning point since the bloody dance of the dragons erupted, and also the most desperate moment in Rhaenyra's life.
An unforeseen naval battle has shattered all hopes for peace. The crown prince perishes in a sea of fire, and a wild dragon rider suddenly appears.
Inside King's Landing, undercurrents surge, interweaving betrayal and scheming.
Salvation and ambition walk hand in hand beneath the shadow of the Iron Throne. Everyone is pushed by fate, plunging into an inescapable abyss. After the Battle of the Gullet, the wreckage of countless warships floated upon the sea.
The brightest heir of the Blacks, the future hope of House Targaryen, has fallen without leaving a single parting word. When the tragic news reached Dragonstone, the entire castle was plunged into mourning.
Facing the cold corpse of her son, Rhaenyra seemed drained of all her strength. Her hands trembled in mid-air, not daring to touch him, only wishing this was all a nightmare.
The son she loved most now lay cold on the ground.
In agony, she questioned him why he left her, constantly shaking him, only wishing he would open his eyes to answer her. But the only response was an endless, freezing silence.
The guards stepped forward to intervene, but were shouted down.
No one dared to raise their heads, much less look into the queen's eyes, brimming with hatred. What pained her most was that everyone knew the truth, but kept it from her, watching helplessly as Jacaerys marched to his death.
The lords who always swore loyalty, and the guards who promised to protect the prince, were ultimately nothing but bystanders. A guard stepped forward to confess his guilt, offering his life as atonement, but Rhaenyra instantly rebuked him. His death could not bring back her son's life. Her hoarse voice, every word like an icy blade, pierced everyone's ears. The great hall was dead silent.
Only the muffled sobs and the agonizing screams of the queen echoed between the cold stone walls. Meanwhile, the instigator of it all appeared before the gates of the Vale.
Nettles brought Sheepstiller along. With no way back, she came seeking sanctuary.
Lady Jane Arryn was utterly shocked. She knew very well that harboring this girl meant openly defying Rhaenyra. Once the news leaked, Dragonfire would burn the Vale to ashes. Therefore, she immediately ordered the guest away. But Nettles came prepared, offering an irresistible condition. Currently, Vhagar is rampaging across the skies, destroying everything in her path.
The Vale seemed safe, but in reality, it lacks any dragon to protect it.
Sheepstiller could stay, becoming the strongest shield for this land.
In return, the lady only needed to turn a blind eye, hiding her whereabouts as if they had never met. The lady pondered, looking at the massive dragon in the distance, and finally accepted. She stated that the vast Vale could not stop a dragon from choosing its lair, which implicitly meant accepting the deal.
A secret alliance was quietly forged among the mountains.
From then on, Sheepstiller settled in the Vale, becoming the most unpredictable pawn in the ensuing conflict. At the same time, the Black Camp in the Riverlands was bustling with celebration. The victories at the Red Fork and the Lakeshore had greatly boosted the morale of the Riverland soldiers. They gathered around the campfires, singing war songs mocking the feeble Greens, laughing at Aemond as a one-eyed coward, and shouting that they would throw the entire Green faction into the river to feed the fish. Just as everyone was intoxicated with victory, Sir Simon Strong arrived at the camp bearing Rhaenyra's orders for Daemon. The news of Prince Jacaerys' death in battle had arrived. Daemon was to immediately depart for King's Landing to assist the Queen in reclaiming the Iron Throne.
He ordered the Riverlands army to march south to King's Landing to join forces, while dividing his troops to garrison Harrenhal. Once Rhaenyra sat upon the Iron Throne, the dragons would sweep the skies of the Riverlands and burn all the remnants of the Greens to ashes. The fervent soldiers chanted in unison to march on King's Landing. Everyone thought victory was right before their eyes, completely unaware that danger was creeping closer step by step.
After giving the order, Daemon stood by the river conversing with the mysterious witch Eowyn's Reavers.
Through her power alone, 40,000 Riverland soldiers had submitted to the Blacks, single-handedly sustaining the entire situation here.
However, there was only one reward she desired.
She said she had lived her whole life at Harrenhal, watching the castle change hands time and time again. Yet no one had ever truly cherished it.
What she wanted was to become the true master of Harrenhal. Daemon laughed mockingly. In his eyes, this woman had no noble bloodline, no title, and there was no royal precedent for granting a castle to a midwife.
He said he would ask the queen to reward her with gold and jewels, but the witch merely chuckled.
What she needed was a place to settle down. Not beautiful, but useless rubies.
Finally, she coldly warned Daemon to get back to Dragonstone and never appear again. Just remember the promises made today. Daemon watched her resolute figure walking away, showing an unreadable expression for the first time.
Meanwhile, the Green situation was no better.
After fleeing, Aegon too had to wander everywhere. His wounds constantly flared up, so painful that every movement felt like tearing his bones apart.
He was filled with resentment, hating the cripple who exposed his identity, hating the disastrous defeat, and fearing even more that falling into Rhaenyra's hands would mean humiliation before death. Just then, the sound of battle suddenly erupted outside the carriage. It turned out the convoy had encountered a small enemy patrol, and the two sides immediately engaged in combat. Amidst the chaos, Aegon hurriedly fled the carriage. Larys strong urged him to hide in the woods to escape danger, but Aegon completely ignored him.
He still had gold in his hands, enough to buy passage on a ship.
He insisted on heading to Dragonstone, believing the garrison they would still be loyal to him. At this moment in King's Landing, a bloodless war was intensely unfolding.
Alicent secretly met with the commander of the City Watch.
She carefully probed his stance, revealing that Rhaenyra was returning.
Queen Helena was willing to open the gates and surrender for the sake of peace, allowing Rhaenyra to enter King's Landing.
Every word was a subtle attempt to sway the City Watch, wanting them to side with the Blacks at a crucial moment. At the same time, Harrenhal received its most terrifying uninvited guest. Vhagar's colossal dragonfire blasted straight into the Harrenhal defenders.
Under the horrific heat, human bodies were scorched into blackened ash.
The massive dragon wings blotted out the sky, making all of Harrenhal tremble under the dragon's oppressive presence.
As Vhagar flapped her fleshy wings, the sturdy stone pillars instantly crumbled like tofu. Aemon jumped down from Vhagar.
He came here looking for Daemon, but the entire castle was empty. The main army had retreated long ago, leaving only Sir Simon Strong's family to hold the fort. Aemon forced the opponent to draw his sword for a duel, but Simon shook his head, saying he hadn't touched a sword in years.
He had no desire to fight Aemon, and he was fundamentally no match for him.
He advised Aemon that the Grand Army had left, and all of Harrenhal now belonged to him. He could take whatever he wanted without having to slaughter everyone.
But Aemon's eyes were filled with violence and discontent. He pointed his blade at Simon's entire family.
After the massacre, he stood in the empty Great Hall, turning his head to look at the woman behind him.
He walked straight toward her, but before taking a few steps, he felt a freezing chill down his spine.
Fresh blood trickled down his armor, and as if drained of all his blood, he collapsed to the ground. He crawled toward the witch, begging her to save his life, but she showed not an ounce of mercy. At this time, Rhaenyra was still drowning in the grief of losing her son, unable to escape it.
Daemon comforted her, saying that Chase had fought for the queen. His death was worthy, and it was his choice.
As for the wild dragon that appeared on the battlefield, Sheepstealer, it was one of the reasons Chase lost his life.
Rhaenyra assumed the Greens had gained another dragon rider and a dragon with terrifying combat power.
She immediately ordered Daemon to find that dragon and its rider at all costs. Right after, Daemon revealed the news that Vhagar had left the city. Rhaenyra's entire body shuddered. All her emotions instantly came rushing back. She remembered Lucerys, remembered the children who once hid behind her skirts. One by one, they died in this game of power. She was stepping on the bones of her children to fight for a cold iron throne. Was all of this truly worth it?
But ultimately, Rhaenyra is a Targaryen.
For those who have died, to spare the small folk from further suffering, and to end this tragedy, she suppressed all her grief and declared they would depart immediately to fly to King's Landing.
Everyone stepped forward to dissuade her. Relying on just a few dragons to breach the Red Keep was like walking right into a trap. But Rhaenyra had made up her mind.
Aemon had gone to Harrenhal according to their agreement. This was the only opportunity. Even if it was a trap, she would accept it.
She was tired of the endless negotiations.
Life or death. Today, there must be a conclusion. She arranged for the new dragon riders to act as escorts, deploying all the dragons in a formation to guard the perimeter. She wanted all the residents to see that the dragons of House Targaryen had returned. Alicent led Helena onto the city walls.
She ordered the captain of the guard to withdraw the defense line.
The captain immediately refused. The king had ordered that, except for Vhagar, any approaching dragon must be attacked. Helena calmly told him that Prince Regent Aemond had abandoned the city and fled, and King Aegon had long since abdicated.
Now, in King's Landing, she was the one with the highest authority.
She revoked all attack orders, forbidding anyone from harming a single dragon.
She looked straight at the captain, asking word by word, "Do you want to turn all of King's Landing to ash, or open the way for Rhaenyra to enter the city, securing peace for all its people?"
The historic moment finally arrived. Rhaenyra flew into the skies of King's Landing.
4 massive dragons circled the capital.
The guards on the city walls laid down their weapons one by one. Rhaenyra's dragons slowly landed before the Red Keep. Alicent had indeed kept her word.
The city gates were wide open, with not a single soldier obstructing them. Rhaenyra walked straight inside without any hindrance.
The guards along the way knelt one after another.
No one dared to stop this true dragon queen. She walked straight into the throne room. Separated for many years, it was now right before her eyes. But just as she stepped forward, a squad of Kingsguard blocked her path.
Just as the tension between the two sides was stretched taut, another group of people appeared from behind, trapping the two of them in the middle. Daemon hastily pulled Rhaenyra behind him to protect her. It seemed the two were about to lose their lives here. After taking control of King's Landing, Rhaenyra immediately demanded Aegon's whereabouts.
The remaining Grand Maester fearfully reported that Aegon, along with Larry Strong, had fled King's Landing long ago, and no one knew where he went.
Daemon sneered, finding it all too coincidental, clearly prearranged. The Grand Maester quickly stepped forward to swear loyalty, claiming he only stayed behind earlier to save his own life. If the usurper had fled, then heads must roll.
Although Rhaenyra didn't want to execute a Maester, seeing the situation turning grim, the Grand Maester immediately offered a gift to prove his worth. He knew where Alicent was, and could hand her over to the Queen to show his sincerity. The first thing Rhaenyra did upon entering the Red Keep was to release all the nobles who had been imprisoned for their loyalty to her, in order to reassure the people.
Right after, she began purging the remnants of the Greens. Master of Laws Jasper Wilde, who colluded in the rebellion and disrupted the court, was sentenced to death whether by hanging or burning to a crisp, all decided by the Queen.
Otto Hightower, the mastermind who ignited the family civil war, was also brought before Rhaenyra.
Daemon lowered his voice to remind her, if she wanted to secure her hold on the throne, she must execute him publicly and absolutely not hesitate.
Only by letting everyone witness her iron blood could she subjugate this city. Rhaenyra's hand gripped the hilt of her sword a little tighter.
She looked at that familiar yet estranged face, hesitating for a moment.
She wasn't sure she could strike the blow, nor was she sure she could cross this final boundary. But as the sword fell, Rhaenyra Targaryen truly became the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms, and at the foot of the Iron Throne, destiny would be paved with fresh blood and white bones. That is the fate of House Targaryen.
Hot blood splattered across the ground, proclaiming the end of an old era. She stepped on the blood of her enemies, walking step by step up to the throne forged from thousands of sharp swords.
Finally, she sat in the position that rightfully belonged to her, victorious in this game of power.
The guards brought Alicent in. She originally planned to escape through a secret passage, but was betrayed and intercepted along the way.
Seeing the gruesome sight of her father's severed head, sheer terror was evident on her face.
She stood frozen in place. Her gaze slowly shifted towards the Iron Throne.
Before her was Rhaenyra sitting on the throne, her eyes brimming with tears, but her gaze as sharp as a knife, the coldness of the throne seeping into her very bones. The usurper Aegon and the strongest dragon Vhagar are still at large.
The bloody dance of the dragons has only just raised its curtain. What awaits this new queen will be an even more brutal war.